Again, it's Traci. Today we're picking up where we left off in this two-part conversation. If you haven't heard part one yet, I really recommend starting there. And if you're returning, welcome back. I'm so glad you came. I know that you talked about how um, you're teaching people. You're teaching people how to talk about their loved one, that their child that passed away. How do you talk about that? How do you talk to their children about it? Are there, I mean, yes, there are age appropriate ways to talk to children. How does that conversation and how that child grieves, or how you talk about Luke or Lydia with your children as they grow, how has it changed?
For me with Amelia, again, she was 4 when Luke passed, and at I think we had to really get into the mind of a 4-year-old. Like, how can I explain this to a 4-year-old? And again, with the help of her therapist talking to her, and I had to be very careful with my words also because I made sure I didn't say, "Okay, Luke was sick, so he went to heaven," because if she got a cold or we got a cold and we were sick, I didn't want her to think that, "Oh my god, now my mommy's going to go to heaven," or, "I don't feel good, now I'm going to go to heaven." So we had to be very careful with the words that we chose and how we explain things. So I remember saying to her, I wanted to be specific, but I didn't want it to be so, I hate to say morbid, but I'll say morbid because he had a heart condition, right? So I said to her, Luke's heart, it couldn't work on earth anymore, and he really had to go to heaven to just feel better, and he was very, 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 very sick. Like, he wasn't able to have this heart on earth anymore, so now he had to go to heaven. And growing up, I grew up, you know Italian Catholic, and that's just what I knew, right? I knew, like, when somebody died, you have this service at a church, you have a wake, you have a funeral, and they go to heaven, right? That's just what I believed in. And that all stopped, I questioned all of what I believed in, my whole faith, as soon as Luke died, and I was like, this is, and Danielle had mentioned before, that we had met through a IVF group, and I conceived Amelia through IVF, and I conceived Luke on my own. Like, he was truly like, this is a miracle, we prayed for this, we wanted this, so I my own personal views and opinions on my faith and what I believed in up until that moment, I made sure that I didn't want to push that on her because I didn't want to skew her beliefs of, if she thinks that Luke is in this beautiful heaven and he's safe and he's okay, I'm going to let her believe that, if that's what she wants to believe. And now she's 7, but last year, the kids start religious education, and if it were up to me, I would be like, absolutely not, you're not doing this. But she was very vocal about joining religion because she wanted to learn where her brother was, and she wanted to learn about heaven, and she wanted to learn about praying and God and angels. And I was like, you know what? You have all of these questions for me. I don't know how to answer them. Let's try this. Like, why don't you go to this religion class and, you can learn about the Catholic faith and God and all this, and you can ask those questions and you can get those answers that you're looking for. And to be honest, it has sort of helped me with my faith again. Like, I have to go with her, I have to go to church with her, so it's some days it's easier than others, going back into the church where we had Luke's funeral services for the first time with Amelia was very, very hard for me, just getting there. But again, she wanted to learn more about this, where her brother was. And now that she's 7, again, she's picking up on the thing that happened at the dentist yesterday. Like, she's picking up on what she feels comfortable talking about, what she doesn't feel comfortable talking about. Um, you know, she'll say, like, my brother's in heaven. When people ask her, like, do you have any brothers and sisters? Yes, I have a brother and I have a sister. So she will express herself. She's very vocal. Um, but now, I just, even now with Vivian, she's crawling around the house and she's going into Luke's room. And up until, before she was born, like, we never went into his room, and now we're going into his room and pulling out his toys. So I feel like I'm accidentally incorporating him back into life again. It's just all coming to the surface again. So now we're not that we stopped talking about Luke, but now I'm like, "Oh, we're in Lukey's room. Like, this is Lukey's Spider-Man. This is a picture of Luke." So it's all sort of coming back to the surface again. And, you know, I think we all know grief it changes every single day, like, day over day. It's not the same for everybody. And I think that is happening with the kids too, especially with Amelia. She would talk so much about Luke when he passed, and then, it kind of lulled off because she was in school and she was busy and had all her friends. She's not going to talk about her brother that passed away, but now we have Vivian and now we're talking about him again. So I think as much as our grief is changing, her grief is changing, but I also think her questions are changing, her process is changing. So we're learning as we go. I think, like, as a parent, especially with your first, you're learning as you go, like, it's just everything she's doing is new to me already, and now I just have this added grief, like, everything that she's doing, grief is new to me and my grief is new to me, so we're just winging it, like.
It sounds like you're taking their lead a lot.
Yeah, I
And
think I really wanted her, especially with this, is there's definitely a balance of, I'm the parent, you're the kid, but also with her grief too. I want her to always feel comfortable with what she's sharing, how she's feeling. So I just feel like with me and my grief, I hated when people would say to me, "Oh, it's been a year, so you're good. You feel okay." When people would put timelines on it, when people would almost sort of make assumptions for how I'm feeling. I hated when people would tell me how to grieve and how to feel. I don't want to do that with her. I want her to have a safe space to feel how she's feeling on her own terms.
Danielle, what would your recommendation or what's your opinion on how to include brothers, sisters, siblings in age appropriate ways? How do you bring that back to Sadie as she gets, well, she's only 15 months, but uh,
But, I mean, I started from the moment she was born, like when we did her newborn photos, and I know Ashley incorporated Luke into Vivian's
Yeah.
new photos as well. But we included a picture in our, like, holding a framed photo of Lydia in our family picture. Um, and my sign for Lydia is hearts, white hearts. So, I have little, like, white hearts that Sadie was holding in her newborn photos. Anytime I see anything that has a white heart on it in terms of clothes, I buy it for her. She is like, I just feel like that's her being wrapped up in Lydia's love. Um, One of the things that I also did back in November of the past year was I did a little free library in our municipal complex in our town at a playground that I used to bring Lydia to very frequently, and that has been a really great opportunity for me to incorporate Lydia in Sadie's life as well, because now she's old enough to go to this playground, and we go and visit Lydia's library and we replenish it every week. And she knows that Lydia also played at this playground, and it's just always talking about her. We have pictures of Lydia everywhere, and like Ashley was saying, like, when she's playing with Lydia's toys, then, like, I make mention of that.
Yeah.
um I have a couple of books that I think my in-laws had given to us, where it's like those personalized books that you can make, that has, like, the child's name in it. So I have a lot of them for Lydia, and I keep them in Sadie's room now, and I read her, like, books about Lydia,
Mhm.
which I think is pretty special. So I also wanted to say, Ashley, that I think you do such a great job with understanding grief and explaining grief to your kids, and you're doing it in a very healthy way. And I know I've shared that with you before, but I just wanted to say it again because you do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, right back at you. You're doing so good too. I think that's why, Danielle and I clicked really from the beginning when we first met. And I don't know if she shared the story with you guys, with, when you guys were on before, but we met in an IVF group on Facebook because after Luke died and after Lydia died, I guess, both of us joined this group together on Facebook, obviously not knowing each other. And I think there was somebody in the group that had posted that they had a loss as well. And I think one of us was like, oh, I'm a lost mom as well. And then Danielle was like, I'm a lost mom as well. So we had connected separately. And it was like fate. Like it was just, we were like so meant to be put in each other's lives. And I hate saying that because we are in each other's lives because our kids are not here, right?
Yeah, like,
Essentially.
I kinda wish I didn't know you, but I'm
Right.
glad
Like
that I know you.
but again, I think it goes back to this community of lost parents. And some of my best friends now, like Danielle and all the lost parents that I met throughout this journey, I've shared so much with them in such a short amount of time, in such a short, Luke's only been gone for 3 years, and so much personal stories about Luke and about my life and about our kids. And it's just such a different connection that I have with my lifelong friends. I've never met Lydia. Danielle's never met Luke. And I have such a strong connection with her. And I truly believe, whatever your faith or whatever you feel, but I truly believe that because her and I have connected, our kids are connected somewhere. Like whether you want to believe in heaven or whatever, spiritually, their energy is they're together. I know that they are because we're together and we're helping other families. We have our kids now and we're incorporating our children that have passed into our lives now. And, it's like we said before, it's a very bittersweet thing that we do because and I think, it's really true what they say. I remember when Luke died, I was like, am I ever going to be happy ever again? Like, am I ever going to, what's going to happen to me? And I remember talking to lost parents who had been in it for years, like 10, 15 years. And they were like, you're never going to not be sad, but if you allow the joy back into your life, you will have it. Like it will come. And it's true what they say. Like you really do learn to hold grief and joy and gratitude and grief together. Like it's such a bittersweet feeling. But if you are open and you allow it, it will happen. And I think that's just what, we want for ourselves and we want for our kids too. We want them to grow up knowing their siblings, knowing loss, because it's going to be part of their life, no matter what, their siblings have passed away and they will ultimately know what grief is and what joy is, just like how we will.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, Ashley. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And one thing that I always notice is that, like, I never met a lost parent that I didn't immediately connect with because it's like
Same. Yeah.
you're on such a different wavelength with them. And like Ashley said, like I share things with my lost parent friends that I don't really share with my
Yeah.
non-lost parent friends. Like I feel comfortable enough, and even though like Ashley and I have never met in person, which is
We've
like
never met.
baffling to me. Because we're only like a few hours away from each other.
Wait, you're in on Long Island and you're in New
Yeah.
Jersey. Isn't there like some kind of like
We can make this
river
happen. We've
over
just
there that you
never
guys
made
could
it.
cross and
We can definitely meet, and we
We
will.
can
I know
definitely
we
make it happen. No,
yeah.
we're what, 2 hours from each other, maybe three. I don't even know, but
Yeah,
close enough to
just a
where
few
we
hours
could,
away.
yeah, we could do it. But we, like she said, we have such a connection. And like I said, I just think, our kids, they were sort of the same age when they had passed, very unexpected. And, Luke and Lydia with their L's, like it's just very, I feel so connected with them, with them connected and with Danielle connected. So
And I feel like I can just text Ashley or any of my grief friends and just
yeah,
say like, "Hey, I'm having a really shitty day
yeah,
and it's been really hard today." Or I'll just say like I'll just send them a picture of a white heart and just say
yeah,
like, "Look what I found."
yeah.
And like we have that excitement for each other.
Mhm.
And like the most meaningful conversations I think come out of like these this community that we created. And,
Yeah.
like, even if I see anything Spider-Man, I immediately think of Luke.
Mhm.
And like Ashley said, like, I've never met Luke, but I feel
Right.
like I do know him,
Yeah.
and I feel like I love Luke because he's Luke, and he's a part of my life now.
Yeah.
And just like that's my goal, is to get as many people as possible to know about Lydia and to love
Yeah.
Lydia, because she just brought joy to my life every single day that she was alive, and she continues to impact other people, and that's really special, because that's how her legacy lives on.
Now, for those listening who want to support a grieving parent, what do you want to tell them or what can help?
We want to talk about our kids. We want to talk about them. Don't be afraid of our emotions. We want to express them. You know, I can talk about Luke and cry, and I can talk about him and have a big smile on my face. It doesn't matter. I want to talk about him. I want to talk about him as much as I want to talk about my living kids. So I think it's important, always bring them up, or even if you don't know how. I think it's so helpful to just be like, oh, I was thinking about Luke the other day. I had a memory of him, saw a picture of him pop up. Do you remember this day? Like anything, just any memory, any story. I think we love hearing that. um I think, a grieving parent that's in the thick of it. I remember after Luke died, oh my gosh, the meal train was so helpful. The groceries, just dropping off food at my house was so helpful. I remember we had people we didn't even know what we were getting. We were just getting food delivered to us like every day. It was so helpful because I was not going grocery shopping anytime soon. I was not cooking anytime soon. So that was super helpful. Just, I think long term, checking in with a parent not only on anniversaries and birthdays, because maybe Danielle, you feel the same way, but I think with, a birthday or a holiday, it's almost like it's sort of like this expected grief. Like the days are heavy, but we kind of know how to survive those, sort of. But it
Yeah, I was
is
gonna say,
just
like, the
like,
anticipation is always
yes,
harder, at least for
yes,
me, that's what I
yeah,
notice. And,
yeah,
like, it's always helpful for me when people in my life can say, like, "Hey, I know Mother's Day is, like, coming up. How are you
yes,
feeling about it?" Or, "Is there
yes,
anything I can do?" This is a really special one to me, is when people ask, like, "What can I do to honor Lydia on her birthday?"
yeah,
Or, "What
yeah,
can I do to, just remember her?" Or what can I share with my children? Or
yeah,
anything like that. And when there's milestones, like, say there's a family wedding or something, just taking
mhm,
a minute to just say, hey, you know what, Lydia should be here right now.
yeah,
And that's like, I guarantee you 100% I'm already thinking that she should be here
exactly.
right now. So the fact that
We're
you've
already
acknowledged
thinking of
that
them.
is,
Mhm,
like, so special to me, because that makes me realize that you're remembering her, and
mhm,
you know how special she is, and you're acknowledging how difficult, like, grief continues to be. And
right,
grief is lifelong. It's not just like Ashley's saying, after a year, okay, you're good, you're moving on.
right,
That's not going to happen.
no,
I'm going to be, if I live to be 100, I'm going to be 100 and still have grief. I'm still
yeah,
going to say, like, Lydia should be here.
mhm.
It's just, it's like what I say all the time is Lydia should be here.
I think also when people text or check in randomly, and when it's not a milestone, when it's not a birthday or a holiday, and it's just like a regular, like, I even was saying, but of course the birthdays and the holidays and these big occasions, like, they're very sad. It's always this extra weight of like, oh, they should be here. But I get triggered at the playground with the kids. I get triggered going to the grocery store or at a school event or a play date with kids, like, or Halloween, seeing all these 4-year-old boys running around in Spider-Man costumes. So I think when people reach out even years later and they're just like, oh, I saw a Spider-Man Halloween costume at Target, just thinking of you. Or random, just unexpected days when people are just like, just thinking about you, just thinking about Luke today. It was stuff like that. I think that's so helpful too. And we mentioned before, having kids after loss, and I think, Danielle, I think you said it, but I feel like my grief was heightened again after I had Vivian. And people think, oh, they had another baby, they're happy again, they're fine, and that's not the case at all. Like, sure, we're happy. I'm so happy I have a beautiful baby girl, but it doesn't replace the sadness. It doesn't replace the grief. Like, the grief is always going to be there. There's a really, really nice visual that I always go, there's the jars with the ball of grief, and the grief always remains the same. The jars get bigger, and you're always going to put more joy and, life into, like Danielle said, you're just going to live to 100. I hope I live to 100. I hope I get to see, my kids grow up and get married and have grandkids, and all these wonderful things are going to happen. But the grief is always going to be there. So it doesn't take away a happiness, doesn't take away, the sadness. It just adds, it doesn't replace, I should say. So,
Another visual I like to use is the like folding in the butter into like
yeah.
making dough, right? You're folding in the butter, and at first, like the butter, like you can see it and it's like congealed, right? And then as you're kneading in the butter into the dough and making it like more homogeneous, then like you bake it and you
Hmm.
can't see the stick of butter, right? You just like it's just interwoven into what you've created, and like that's life with grief.
Yep.
And I just one thing that came to mind when Ashley was talking was um I found that it's more helpful for me for someone to just say thinking of you, or like send me a picture of something and say like this
Hmm.
reminded me of Lydia, than to ask how are you doing today.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm like, well, do they want the trauma version? Do
You
they
really
want
want to know how I'm doing today?
right? Do they want the superficial version? Like,
Right.
should I even get into it?
Right.
Because if you ask me today, how are you doing today? I could say, I'm doing okay. Or I can
Yep.
say, you know what? I cried earlier today because I found something of Lydia's that I forgot that I had. And it just brought back up these memories and it made me really sad. But like, I'm doing okay generally. So how are you doing? Just try to avoid that if possible
Yeah.
and like make it more specific, because then y- sometimes it's like a lost parent can feel out of control. Like, well, I don't know how to answer that. And
Mhm.
then it's like sometimes like once you get me going, I'll keep going and I won't stop. So, yeah, yeah.
One more question for you guys. Is there anything you want to say to parents who are listening who are parenting through a loss of a child?
I think we touched upon it earlier when we talked about the fact that like when you have a child after loss, like it heightens the grief again. So
Yeah.
you're thinking about it again, and what comes to the forefront is like, okay, now there's all these new milestones that my child is never going to get to see. So like Lydia didn't see when Sadie took her first steps. And, that I pictured her kind of in the room, like cheering her on or teaching her how to do things. And
Hmm.
she, we don't get that opportunity. So a lot of it is like we've talked about, like this joy, but holding hands with grief as well. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a great milestone. This is so exciting. But Lydia's not here to see it. And then like you're sad about it. Um, but I think in the way that we've talked about, like you know, c- continuing their lives through like our children growing up, that's what's really important, because then like they're going to get to know their sibling on a different level.
Hmm.
It really sucks that they're never going to meet their sibling in person, but I think that's what our job as parents is to do, is to continue to honor them in our lives. And, we're, like I said before, we're still a family of four. We're just in different places, but we still love each other. And that's what's so super important to me, is making sure that, our kids know that. And
Yeah.
and like Ashley said earlier, you know, you can hold grief and you can hold joy, and that's normal,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I think a lot of times, like, and I know for a fact, Ashley, that you would agree with this, is that like
Yeah.
there are times when we feel guilty when we've experienced so much joy. Like, oh my gosh, how can I feel this joy when my child died? But,
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to have joy
Yeah.
and to be grateful for other things and to also mourn the loss of your child and to continue to honor them.
I think I would say the same. For sure, don't feel guilty. I know it's harder said than done, but really learn to not feel the guilt of enjoying these moments, especially with, your living children or your family. I think it's so important, that your living children are going to bring you so much joy for the rest of your life. Accept it. Like, you deserve it. This horrible thing happened to you. This horrible thing happened to your family, to them. They lost a sibling. Whatever moments and feelings of joy you feel from them, accept it. Number 1, I think, like, I would watch Amelia, like, do some silly things, after Luke had died, and I think part of it just wanted her she just wanted to make us laugh, so she's doing it to, like, help us, but at the same time, like, it's what we need, right? As lost parents, like, it was just so helpful to have her little light, help us get through those days. What I would also say is kids need healthy parents. So allow yourself to take the time to get the grief help that you need. Um, you know, I had Amelia, when Luke died, and I remember saying, like, I have to take care of her. I have to take care of her. And then I collapsed and I was like, I have to take care of me. If I'm going to be able to take care of her, I have to take care of myself. And I remember, you know, starting to accept the help from other people is one of the things that's going to get you through this journey, and grief is a journey. It's not going to stop. You're not going to be healed. There's no period at the end of that sentence. Losing a child, you're just going to be healing for the rest of your life. And it's going to look different every single day. It's going to look different every year. And I think the more you sort of learn to roll with it, it doesn't get easier, but I think, it it hurts. Like, it's not as raw if you just are like, "Okay, what's today gonna be like?" Like, really, if you take it day by day, I think that's helpful too. But you really have to take care of yourself, and I think, like we spoke earlier, making sure that my husband and I were in a good place to take care of our daughter, like, to make sure him and I were good, to be good parents, and to bring another child into this world, like, we wanted to make sure we were mentally and emotionally prepared for that too, so it's super important to just take care of yourself, so you are able to take care of your kids and, fill your cup, rest, it's a lot. Grief is it takes a lot out of you, physically, emotionally, mentally, and you need to recharge, and don't feel guilty for recharging, don't feel guilty for feeling that either. So, I think, that's just super helpful, and, I think lost parents who are in the thick of it, if it's just happening to you, number 1, you're not alone. Definitely try to find a community, like we were saying, I think the community of lost parents, it sucks. It really does suck to be part of it, but once you're in it, you're in it, and it's so helpful to have people who understand what you're feeling, so I think finding a community, finding a group is very, very helpful, and, just continue to honor your child in whatever way you want to. Don't let anyone tell you how to grieve, how, what to feel. It's your grief, it's your feelings. How whatever you want to do. Even people will ask me now, like, what do you do to honor your son? Like, I still haven't put birthday candles in a candle for him yet, but I have a garden. Like, there's things that I can't do but there's things that I love doing, and each year is different. Like, the birthday. I remember the first year was horrible. It was horrible, but then the second year was like, "Okay, I survived it, so it wasn't horrible," So every year is different. Um, and I think Danielle had said before too, like the anticipatory grief is, I think, worse than the actual day. I don't know. Maybe because it's a control thing. Like you don't have control of the day until it gets here. Like Mother's Day, I remember leading up to Mother's Day, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to feel on Mother's Day? And then Mother's Day came and I was like, okay, it's here. It's just a day. Survive it how you want to survive it. Survive it how you need to. Don't let anybody tell you what you should and should not do.
Another thing that I thought about was it's a common feeling for lost parents who are pregnant or having another child in whatever capacity, is the fear of not being able to connect with the child as much as you were able to connect with your child who died. I know I experienced that, in my pregnancies looked very different. Like my pregnancy with Lydia was like I was taking a picture of me and my baby bump every single week. I did all like the fruits and that, I did everything. And I found that in my pregnancy with Sadie, I was very cautious. I like almost didn't want to get too connected just in case, because
Yeah.
I've experienced grief before. I
Yeah.
cannot deal with losing another child. So I'm just going to protect my emotions and not get too connected just in case. So like I don't have many pictures of me pregnant, and I didn't do as much. But like the second that I met Sadie, I was in love with her, and like all of those fears just went out the window, because I
Mhm.
just like once I saw her face, I was like I'm so grateful that she exists now. So if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling like I don't know how I'm going to love a child as much as I loved my child that died, it's okay. That's a normal feeling, and you will love this child, and this child will bring a lot of joy to a really, really difficult life, and you're allowed to experience that joy, and you have to give yourself grace, and you're going to have bad days and you're going to have good days and you're going to have everything in between, and all of that is normal, and you're not alone.
Wonderful. Well, both, Danielle, Ashley, thank you so much for, first of all, for being here, but for being so vulnerable, for telling your stories. It means a lot. Thank you. And I'm
Thank you.
sure that people who are going through the same thing that you have gone through, very similar things, I'm sure they appreciate it. Thank you. So, for listeners who want to learn more about Love from Lydia or Luke's Purpose, or to get in touch with either one of you directly, how can they?
So I'm really active on our Instagram, which is underscore love from Lydia underscore. I also have lovefromlydia.com, where I'm the person who gets any messages that are sent through there. So that will come directly to me. I love connecting with lost parents. I love connecting with anyone who loves a lost parent. So if you ever need any guidance, I'm happy to provide that to you. If you know anyone who wants to be connected to another lost parent, please visit the website and learn about our programs. I thank you guys for listening and for being open to hearing how you can help others, and for the lost parents that are listening, that you're not alone, and that we're one big community. It's a club that none of us wanted to be in, but here we are. So we're doing the best we can.
And for Luke's Purpose, our website is lukespurpose.org. There's all of our information there. Again, it's me that's behind the scenes. If you shoot me an email, you'll get me. And our Instagram is at Luke's Purpose. So same thing. I'm pretty active on there. I just post a lot about our events and ways to help, ways to get involved, ways to help us fundraise. And we're on Facebook also, at Luke's Purpose. We talk about community. It really is a community. It really is something that it will help you put one foot in front of the other, for sure.
Listeners, this episode is a reminder that parenting doesn't just end after loss, it just looks different. It's harder, more complicated, and often very lonely. But you're not the only one trying to figure it out. There are others walking this path too, and there's support out there when you're ready for it. Thank you for joining us. If you've any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you've found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Traci Arieli from Comforting Closure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.